situated here. First things first, of course, got a little bit of quick announcements for you. First off, yesterday was Baskets of Love, and we served 158 people yesterday. It was a great day, yes. I got to tell you, I was pleasantly surprised with the number of people volunteering to help yesterday. And I think one of the most amazing things for me is that we have people who are coming to receive the food who are asking if they can volunteer next time. I love that. I love it. It's so great. God just works through that ministry to reach people, and it's great to see people serving. So good. There is still time to add to our Easter garden. Easter is next week. Our Easter garden started. So if you have some flowers or something you want to put up for Easter here, you can bring it in, and we can put it up there and just kind of form this beautiful array of God's creations, right? And then, again, Easter is next week. Invite people, right? It's the easiest week to invite people to church, I promise you. And the more they have a higher chance of saying yes this one day. It's proven in all the numbers out there. So invite someone. Let's see. Also today, afterwards, there is a baby shower for Monica, Monica Yeager, and little Calvin, the little boy, will be here and all that. So that's after church today at noon. All right. I think I got everything. So I'm gonna take a drink of water real quick because I don't know about you, it's hot up here today. Maybe it's the lack of hair these days. I don't know. I'm looking at my notes here, and I just want to say that we're going to be starting off in Luke chapter 8 this morning, and that's where we're going to be for the week. And before we jump into the scriptures, I kind of want to play. I want to play a little game. Right? Who likes to play games? Everyone likes to play games? Yeah, yeah. All right. And I'm going to use this remote to help us play this game. Okay. This shouldn't be a difficult scenario for people. Just for your imagination, just put yourself on the couch at home with your remote, okay? And in your hand, and you have this remote, and you're trying to turn on the TV, right? I say try because when you push the button on your remote, nothing happens, right? Nothing happens. So what do you do next when that happens? Do you press harder? Maybe the button's bad. The lack of enthusiasm is the problem, right? Push hard. If you press harder and it doesn't work, what do you try next? Oh, smack it. Okay, thank you. Yes, you went there really quick, though. That's not quite. I won't go there yet. I would have a few more steps before I start smacking the remote, but I like your commitment to that one. Like I would say, you press it repeatedly, over and over again. You change angles, right? You're like, maybe the bad angle here, up here. If you ever see us trying to change the color of the church cross here, the cross, it's like that. Like weird angles, right? And then and you maybe try low, up high. But if that doesn't work, what do you try next? Smack it. Yeah, sure. You can smack it for sure that time, right? You hit it. There's just something about hitting it. And I was going to tell you this little story. I was thinking about my old days back in the military, working on planes. I was looking at pictures of my old planes, the style of the C-141s, and one of the things I worked on, like the navigation systems, and this is all like analog type computer systems. So it's not like these circuit boards like we have now, but it was kind of beefy metal computer contraptions. Okay, so just I want to understand that. So we'd have some things go wrong, and we would hit things with hammers to make things work. I promise you, it worked somehow. And so basically, what happens is you have some gears seize up, you hit it with a hammer, and it breaks the seize, right? Things start working a little better. So it literally was part of the process. Like there was a step in there where you hit it, and it would work. So it's kind of crazy. But if you ever grew up in the Nintendo area, if you ever played Nintendo when you were young, you might blow into the cartridge to get it to work. Seemed to work back then. If that didn't work, like what would you try next? Well, rubbing alcohol. Now, if this doesn't work, though, you can't. There's nothing to blow on. What would you try next after hitting it? What could be wrong with it? Batteries, right? You replace the batteries, right? It might be the first thing to check, but you replace maybe before the smacking part too. I don't know. But you replace the batteries. So you go to the junk drawer or whatever drawer you have, find some batteries floating around from the 80s that look promising, right? And there's everything like crusty on it, right? If that doesn't work, what do you try? What do you try next? Well, you might go to another remote, right, in the house and pull batteries out of that one and put it in this one and see if it works differently. And I mean, so you make a little sacrifice for one for the other to get it done, right? If that doesn't work, what do you try next? You might ask Google. Hey, Google, I'm having problems with this. What do we do? You might look for the owner's manual. This might be the first thing you want to do. But, look for the owner's manual that, like it's like 3 years old. You don't know where you put it. You might try to figure out who used the remote last. Maybe something happened. Like, at least you have someone to blame that doesn't work anymore, right? You might try to figure out who. You might try all kinds of things, right, to figure this out. And eventually, you reach this place where you're like, I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything I can, and when you reach that place, typically by then you're probably feeling a little bit frustrated, aren't you? Like a little bit irritable, exasperated, a little discouraged in the situation because you've tried everything you can think of to make this thing work, and none of it has worked to make it. And you don't really know what else to do, and you haven't already done, and a lot of us end up living life with that kind of a spirit, I think. Like we're not really sure why, it just feels frustrated and irritated and discouraged and exasperated with things and the people around us. And I would argue it's because of a much broader sense that we've tried a lot of things that haven't worked. And we're not sure what to try next because it's one thing when that happens with the remote control. But what do you do when you're like, you tried every parenting book, and you've tried all kinds of timeout techniques, reward charts, but you're still having these behavioral challenges with your child. And you're not sure what else to do. For a while, you have hope because there seems to like a long list of things you can try. But now you've tried them all, and none of it's worked. Well, what do you do when you've been to 3 different doctors, and you've tried 6 different medications, and you changed your diet, the whole thing, and the diagnosis hasn't changed? And you feel like things aren't better. In fact, they're getting worse. Like, what do you do when you've tried to date? You tried date nights and marriage counseling and communication exercises, and that you and your spouse, it just seems to be this growing distance between you two. And what do you do when you kind of, maybe you're single and you try dating a lot of people and you try to put yourself out there to meet people, but what do you do when you've tried everything that you think you know how to do and it feels like there's nothing left to do and none of it's working? What do you do when you've prayed the same prayers for years and you've asked God for some things and you fasted and maybe you've even asked other people to pray or fast for you and then heaven still seems silent? The question that we're wrestling with is this: what do you do when you've done everything you can do? You've reached this place where you have exhausted your resources, your wisdom. You're out of strength and you're out of options. When you find yourself in that place, and all of us will, you find yourself up against this line where the space you've been living, it's in the self-sufficiency space. When you've thought to yourself, I'm in control, I can fix this, and I can try this, and I'll change that. And you've worked out these different equations in your mind of what you can do. And now you've gone through all of it. And you're up against this line. And on the other side of self-sufficiency is surrender. Or you let go of some things that you've been holding on to a little too tightly. You've been trying to control people. People are hard to control, by the way. You've been trying to control how someone responds to you, and you can't, or how you feel about you, how they feel about you, and you can't change it. You've been trying to control the job market or the stock market, or you've been trying to control things that are outside of your own health, outside of your own control, and you're being forced to step outside of your own self-sufficiency, and into this really uncomfortable place of letting go of things that you are scared to let go of. And if you can relate to that at all, then you'll understand what happens next in Luke 8 when we read about a man named Jairus. Jairus, starting in verse 40, it says, now when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Okay, a couple words here. First word is crowd. Okay, whenever you see the word crowd in the Gospels, it's defining a large group of unidentified people. Okay, it's a large group. A lot of people in one area that don't necessarily know each other. Nobody's wearing name tags. It's just a large group of people who are unidentified, right? And it says they were all expecting him. So you've got a lot of people with a lot of expectations, right? They're coming to see Jesus. There's some expectations here, their own expectations. And then in verse 41, we see Jesus do what Jesus does in the midst of this whole crowd. He singles in on one person. This one at a time way of Jesus. It says, then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, remember that little note, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. Now, to understand Jairus, you have to think what it would have been like for him. Imagine standing in a hospital room and you're watching the monitors of your 12-year-old daughter, your only child, lies there and her life is just slipping away. And no one can tell you what's wrong. And you've called the specialist, all of them. You've researched every treatment. You've called in every favor. And you've pulled every string. You've prayed every prayer that you know how to pray. And none of it has worked. You've pushed every button you can think to push, and she's still down to her final hours of life. And Jairus here, listen, he's more than just your typical concerned father. He's a synagogue leader, meaning he's a recognized community leader. So in this crowd of people that are all kind of anonymous and no one knows who they are, there's one person in the crowd that everyone knows who he is. And he's very recognizable. He carries this position where he's used to being in control of things. He's used to being in charge, and he's used to getting his way, and he's being forced to acknowledge this part of his life that means more to him than all the other parts that he has no control over this. He has no control. So here you have this guy who is respected. Like when he enters the room, people stand up. The room grows quiet, right? And he has a lot of authority. When he speaks or makes a decision, his word goes. He was connected. He knew all the right people. And he was thought to be a very especially connected person to God. And so when the people had hard things going on, he's who they would go to for help a lot. And he's used to being in this position where he's in control. And when someone needs help, they come to him. And now he's the one who is in need of help. He is the one who doesn't know what else to do. And here's the thing in our story. All these things about him, his respect, his influence, his connection, his resources, none of it mattered. None of it. None of it mattered. Now, the Bible says it was his only daughter, and he tried everything to save her. But his position couldn't heal her. His connections couldn't find the right doctor. His resources couldn't buy a cure. And time was running out. And death was knocking at the door. And here's the thing about death, though. Death doesn't care about your resume. And death doesn't care about your bank account or your job titles or how important you think you are. So what do you do when you have done everything you can? Maybe you reached that place. Maybe you haven't. But you will if you haven't. Remember what Jairus does. Verse 41. He fell at Jesus' feet. It was embarrassing, right? But he's past the point of caring about being embarrassed. It felt like a loss of dignity, but his desperation outweighed his perception of dignity. So he falls at the feet of Jesus. People recognize him. They're surprised to see someone in his position falling at the feet of this homeless, controversial rabbi named Jesus. But that's what happens. And then it just says, he pleaded with Jesus to come to his house. Please, 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 Jesus. Just come. Just come to she doesn't have much time left. Please, I need you to come right now. We need to go right now. And he seems to understand that he has nothing to negotiate with. He has nothing to offer Jesus that Jesus somehow needs from him. And all he can do is humbly plead. Please, Jesus. And Jesus says, let's go. Surrounded by a huge crowd, they tried to make their way towards Jairus' house. But then we read these words. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. You can imagine his frustration, right? Like we all know how traffic is, right? It gets bad. The okay, so traffic. I'll give you a little example here. So Aubrey goes to a therapy session, physical therapy session on Monday mornings before school. Right, I drop her off. It's a 45-minute session. This last Monday, I decide I'm going to go and I'm going to get some breakfast, some good McDonald's morning breakfast. Right, the good eggs. Right, this the good stuff. Um, and McDonald's is pretty quick. Right, it's quick. I have like 15 minutes before I have to pick her up. I get in there. I ordered, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. 15 minutes goes by. It's time to pick her up. I have 3 cars in front of me still. I'm like, what's going on, McDonald's? You got to hurry up here, right? I'm getting frustrated. I'm like, I got to go pick her up. They're probably waiting on me. And I'm like, I got so frustrated. I'm like, you got to hurry, you got to hurry. I'm sitting there just telling the car, just drive forward. You don't need your food. Just go. I have to get mine and leave. I was late to picking her up. They were really nice. They were understood. I'm like, McDonald's was never this slow. I blame McDonald's because it was their fault. But that's what he was dealing with, right? That's what this like being in traffic, you're being stuck. You want to move forward, you can't move. And he's trying to cut through the traffic to get home so that Jesus can rescue his daughter. But every person is in his way. Every person feels like an obstacle. He knows he's only got like hours, maybe minutes left. And he can feel that frustration, the irritation setting in. I need Jesus more than you do. Move out of the way. His daughter's life is hanging in the balance. And in the middle of this fight, in this traffic, life or death journey, there's an interruption that slows Jesus's. He slows down even more. The text tells us about a woman in Luke chapter 8 who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. And she had this illness for 12 years. Now, if that number 12 sounds familiar to you, that's the second time we've heard that number in the story. It also is the same age as Jairus' daughter. So for the same amount of time that his daughter has been alive, this woman has been suffering. Not just physically, but like a social outcast. Like Jairus, she tried everything. Like she'd spent out all of her money on doctors and potential remedies, and nothing had worked. And so she finds herself along with Jairus, this woman who's an outcast and this man who was a recognized leader, two polar opposites in the same position. And they're on the same level at this moment. The ground is level at the feet of Jesus. And she tells herself, if I could just touch the edge of his clothing, I'll be healed. And so she reaches out and she touches his clothes and she's healed. And Jesus stops traffic immediately. Right? Who touched me? Right? And Jairus is thinking, what do you mean, who touched you? We are surrounded by a crowd of people. There are people everywhere, and you're stopping to find out who touched you? But Jesus knew some power had gone out from him. And so he looks around, and it's just really beautiful that this woman recognized, that she realized that she could not go unseen, that Jesus was going to take time to see her. And so she begins to tell her story, and meanwhile, Jairus is standing there, right? His heart's pounding. Like, we got to hurry. We got to get moving here, Jesus. His adrenaline is pumping, and he's shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He's looking down the road to where he should be going towards his house. And he's thinking, we have no time. We don't have time for this. Doesn't Jesus care about my daughter? And then his thoughts are interrupted by the words that Jesus speaks to this woman. He says to her, daughter. There's 2 daughters in the story, 2 of them. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. One daughter is being embraced. The other's life is slipping away. And Jairus feels so helpless. I'm sure more than a little bit frustrated at that point. And so, we come to God with this sense of urgency. Come on, God. And if you read through the Gospels, it's hard to find Jesus ever in a hurry. Ever. But sometimes it just feels like everyone else is getting their number called and yours isn't. Seems like everybody else, things are working out for them, but it's not working out for you. Jairus must have felt that way. How do you respond when God's timeline doesn't match your urgency? How do you respond when it feels like time is running out? And for most of us, that's when we lose hope. Like when not yet starts to feel like not ever, because waiting is the hardest part of hoping. Can I just say, To some of you who have done everything you can and you don't know what else to do, you're in the right place right now. That's really difficult. This place, it's a difficult place. Because even though what you were doing before wasn't working, at least you have something to do. But once you reach that point where it's like, I don't know what else to do, I don't know what other prayers to pray, I don't know where else to turn, then you're starting to step into this place of surrender where you have to give up. And that's how Jairus felt. Verse 49, the worst thing happens. While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Jairus, come here. Jairus can see it in his eyes, right? The man tells him, Jairus, your daughter's dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore. What is he saying? There's nothing else that can be done. Jairus, you did everything you could do. There's nothing else that can be done. His world just falls apart because in his mind, this is the end of the story. This is what he thinks is the end. There's nothing else he can do. There's nothing else for him. Jesus, Jairus, why are you bothering this teacher? Don't bother him anymore. Don't bother the teacher anymore. She's dead. There's nothing else that you can do. There's nothing else that Jesus can do. But Jesus hears the news being shared with Jairus, and he says something that seems wildly inappropriate to say to a father who just found out that his only daughter had died. He says, look at me. Look at me, Jairus. Don't be afraid. Just believe and she will be healed. I mean, the audacity, right? Honestly. Who do you think you are, Jesus, to say such a thing to a father whose only child is dead? Well, he is the Alpha who spoke things into existence. He is the Omega who will have the final word when the end comes. He is the soul rescuer, the chain breaker, the burden bearer, the grave robber, the mountain mover, the name changer, the prison shaker, the sin forgiver, and the joy bringer and the hope giver. Like this is who is saying it. So he gets to say it, right? He gets to say, don't be afraid. And he says, believe. That word belief, we've talked about this last week. It's this word trust, right? It's to put a picture with it. The word believe. It's like what you put your weight on that will hold you up. Like you're trying to decide, okay, what can I put all my weight on that will hold me up? That's what I'm going to believe in. And so Jesus, what he's saying is, don't be afraid. Just, I want you to put all your weight of this moment on me. Believe in me. Put all your weight on me. Believe in me. And what's hard for Jairus is being asked to do by Jesus is to put more trust in the promise of Jesus than the reality of the circumstances. That's hard to do. It takes a lot to ask. To trust him more than what I can see right in front of me. The reality of my circumstances or the reality of my pain, my emotions in the moment. I'm going to trust him more than what I feel right now. Believe in me, he says. It's not pretending that bad news isn't real. Okay? That's not what it is. Listen, the gospel message isn't that bad things don't happen. It's that bad things don't get the final word. That death and failure and disappointment are never the end of the story when Jesus is involved with it. Even when it feels like it's not the end of the story, right? As they arrive at Jairus' house, verse 52 says, meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. Stop wailing, Jesus said. That's how he probably said, like, stop wailing, right? I kind of picture Jesus saying it like that. He's probably didn't say it that way, but I kind of picture him being annoyed with the wailing, right? Like, stop wailing, people. Come on. I'm here now. It was probably gentle. Stop wailing, right? Maybe not. Maybe he was annoyed with them. I don't know. Stop wailing. She's not dead. She's asleep. In that culture, professional mourners were hired, okay, to grieve. That's what they did. They hired people to mourn, right? It was like dramatic and loud. I think of professional mourners as like the original drama club. Right? I was in drama club when I was young. You could pay them to turn your moderate sadness into a Broadway production. Okay, um, and Jesus basically walks into this mid performance and said, "Hey, show's over. Stop wailing." And he makes this statement that everyone finds absurd. She's not dead. She's asleep. And he's not defining biological reality here, or he's not denying biological reality here. He's reframing how, from his eternal perspective, how death works. That death is temporary. It's more like sleep than an ending. She's not dead, but asleep. Verse 53 says that they all laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. They laughed at Jesus, right? It's not a nervous chuckle. It's not an awkward smile. Like, they laughed at Jesus. The Greek word here suggests ridicule and mockery. And I get it. I get it, right? Who do you think you are to come into this young girl's funeral and say, stop grieving? Well, he is also the truth seeker, the path straightener, the wound healer, the crown wearer, the hell rescuer, the heaven giver, the thirst quencher, the tear collector, the fear vanquisher, and the funeral crasher. He gets to do this. Nobody else gets to do this. Nobody else gets to walk in and say, hey, stop wailing. Jesus gets to come in and say, stop crying. She's not dead, she's asleep. And their laughter reveals something profound about them. But I think probably something profound about all of us. And that is, if we're honest, if we're really honest, our tendency is to trust our perception of what's possible over God's promise of provision. So we know what God has promised. And yet we recognize what we see and we trust what we see, right? We trust our perception of what's possible more than God's promise of provision. And we're skeptical and we're dismissive and we roll our eyes. And some of you have already felt that. Like, you came to church and maybe you're part of this, but even during worship, you're like, really? Like, there's this part of you that finds yourself kind of rolling your eyes and thinking, I don't know about all of this. And within us, on the side of self-sufficiency, it's this tendency to dismiss what God has said because we trust our own perspective. We say to ourselves, I know better. I know what's real. Verse 54, Jesus took her by the hand and said, my child, get up. He probably said a little louder than that because of the exclamation point at the end. And her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them, can you get her something to eat? I love that, right? You think it's just the nuance of that. I love that because we read earlier in the story that he doesn't invite the whole crowd to witness this, right? Like, there isn't this dramatic music being played, and everyone is gathered around, hooping and hollering, and Jesus raised her from the dead, yay, woo! And like, he brings the family and friends around, and he picks her up by the hand, and she's probably hungry. Because, being dead works up such an appetite, right? Apparently, that's the thing. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it is. I mean, Jesus said it is. She's probably hungry, so I suppose it was. And Jesus is like, yeah, why don't you feed her? Give her some food. And he's not doing this for show. And his journey is a journey all of us must take, where we reach a point where we've tried everything we can. Everything we can, and we don't know what else to do. And we move from self-sufficient to surrender. And so if that's where you're at in some part of your life, or if that's not where you're at, and you will be, right? You will be. Let me give you just 4 encouragements from our story today. And number 1, first encouragement, recognize the limitations of your own power. Okay? Like Jairus, there comes a point where we must admit when our position, our influence, our resources, they are not enough. Jairus had to humble himself and say, Jesus, I need you. And let me just tell you, there's a lot of freedom on the other side of your dignity when you finally humble yourself to Jesus. And you say, my way is not working, Jesus. I need your help. Your way is better. But you will have to decide between your perception of dignity and oftentimes God's deliverance. You're going to have to decide, am I going to maintain my perception of dignity, or am I going to humble myself and ask for help? So that's the second thing, is to embrace the posture of surrender. The text tells us that Jairus fell at Jesus' feet. It's not a polite bow. It's not like a curtsy or nothing like that. It's a face to the ground desperation for him. Someone in his position. It's incredibly humbling thing. All the way to the ground, face down, where he sets aside his perceived dignity to experience deliverance, where he sets aside his pride so that he can experience God's power in his life. The third one, trust Jesus with your only, okay, quote unquote only. The text emphasizes for us that Jairus, this is his only daughter, okay, his only daughter. What is it that you're holding on to so tightly because it's your only? We all have an only in our life. Like, you just don't trust Jesus with it. You don't trust anybody with it. So you try to control and you try to hold on to it. But honestly, the more you try to control it, hold on to it, the more you recognize that you're not in control of it. The text makes it clear that you can trust Jesus with what is most precious to you. And then number 4, you celebrate when Jesus does what only Jesus can do. What happens after Jesus crashed this funeral and raised this girl from the dead? Well, Luke tells us that the parents were astonished. Okay, yeah, that's an understatement probably at this point. That the crowd was, the word translated ecstatic or overwhelmed with joy. That's the idea here. Overwhelmed with joy. When Jesus shows up and does what only Jesus can do, it's not a time to say, well, that was pretty neat. No, it's time. It's not time for golf claps, right? No golf clapping in this. It's time to celebrate that you got to see Jesus do something that only he can do. What is in your life right now that only Jesus can do it? Celebrate when Jesus steps into your life like that. I don't know about you, but as we go into Easter, we draw closer to Jesus and his story and the truth of who he is in our lives. It's undeniable that we need him more and more, isn't it? Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you